So recently I published this video going over what I believe to be the reasons for the drastic drop of quality in Pokemon games over the last couple generations. Please watch that first for context. Although the reaction was overwhelmingly positive, there were a lot of comments explaining their personal disillusionment with the franchise, and others attempting to pinpoint when the franchise began to go downhill. Thank you so much for them, everyone. But at the same time, many of you mentioned some very important points that I didn't touch on, potentially the reason behind the mainline games dwindling in quality, one of which was in fact the Pokemon Company itself. Now, the Pokemon Company was founded back in 1998, a couple years after Red and Green first released, in order to have a proper corporate entity to run the now iconic Pokemon Center merchandise shops in Tokyo, Japan. Its control then expanded to the whole franchise in 2000, as the turn of the millennium brought with it all kinds of new Pokemon business ventures, which themselves made the company very lucrative. It's currently valued at 203 billion yen, which is around $1.4 billion US dollars or 1.1 billion pounds sterling. No wonder Nintendo gave them ultimate control over the fate of the franchise. Their board members see numbers, not the future. Who can blame them? It was this ultimate control that I believe set the franchise down the path that it's on today. Instead of allowing Gamefreak to pursue their own creative vision for games, the Pokemon Company gives them a very short development cycle to flesh out the games. Scarlet and Violet, which I criticised intensely in the first part, were released 10 months after the previous entry, Legends Arceus. This left Scarlet and Violet feeling like a duct-taped mess of a game that had so many corners cut in development it was practically a circle. For the Pokemon Company, the actual Pokemon games themselves serve no real purpose, as they are arguably the least financially profitable part of the Pokemon empire. The company can just print more and more trading cards. The games themselves are worthless except for selling more plushies, and giving them something to base the ever so popular anime off of. All of these other income streams serve infinitely more purpose, so obviously the business-minded folks at TPC just want to pump out as many new games as possible, as easily and as cheaply as possible. Because of course, more games equals more Pokemon, which equals more merchandise. Simple as. We've got over 1,000 characters now. We don't need 1,000 Pokemon. I bet there's still that one kid in the playground who claims he can name every single one. No wonder Gamefreak has given up putting the proper effort in. They're getting their humongous paycheck every installment anyways. Why bother working hard when you can delegate to the copious incompetent support studios and, when the game inevitably falls under fire upon release, just, stick your feet up and get working on the next one. Scarlet and Violet are the epitome of modern gaming. Incomplete on release $60 wastes of time. Someone has to say it. There may be the occasional diamond in the rough, but the overall trend in the past few years has been far from good. A good example of how the recent games have been rushed by developers is that Scarlet and Violet are only now receiving Pokemon Home support, 6 months after release, and also after multiple delays on top of that. I have a sneaking suspicion that the 18th of November 2022, the original release date for the games, was a deadline set by the Pokemon Company in order to coordinate with all the other paraphernalia that comes with the release of a Pokemon game. Pokemon as a franchise seems to be going the same way that Call of Duty did. The powers that be have decided that Pokemon must be an annual holiday release, which leads to inevitably a drop in quality thanks to rushed, crunched development, as well as the release of a game becoming more of a "oh, there's another one" than an actual event. Gone are the days where people would be lining up outside of Walmarts and GameStops in order to be the first ones to get their hand on the new game. Of course, digital releases are a thing now, but the point still stands. And in recent years, every game since Sword and Shield has had less hype than the last. At least in the West, I have no idea what's going on in Japan. I think that this hype depreciation phenomenon may be thanks in part to the Pokemon Company really not giving a fuck whether fans of the franchise play the games or not. It's been a long time since I saw an advert for a Pokemon game in real life. Compared to other big AAA releases, the marketing effort is almost negligible. Furthermore, people no longer look to Pokemon as an interesting game franchise. People buying Scarlet and Violet, especially off the back of Legends Arceus, were definitely expecting more of the same. The Pokemon formula is tired, and any attempts to change it were implemented suboptimally by Gamefreak. Look at the trial system from Sun and Moon. What could have been the biggest revolution in Pokemon since the franchise's conception ended up landing flat on its face. Trials were probably one of the least memorable parts of Generation 7, and that's saying a lot. Obviously, if you like them, you like them, but personally, I genuinely found no fun in them whatsoever. It was just another box to tick. I'm afraid that the fact that Gamefreak came under fire for attempting to change the formula left them jaded. I can only assume that after 20 plus years of creating Pokemon games, they're itching to work on other stuff. And fans complaining when Gamefreak attempts to reinvigorate the formula of the franchise is most definitely a catalyst for their lack of devotion to the Pokemon series. Another serious factor limiting the potential of the franchise is how tragically underpowered the Switch is, and how hard it is to develop for. Being a 6-year-old console that was underpowered compared to the competition even upon launch, the Nintendo Switch really can't handle the creative visions of Gamefreak, at least not at a stable frame rate above 15, with the wild area from Sword and Shield being a perfect example of this. There was a meme going around that compared the trees and other flora to the assets from Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is a game released almost a quarter of a century ago. Hopefully that's not too much of a shock for any, old people watching. It might be just me, but the resemblance is almost scary. Nintendo really dealt them a bad hand in that regard. To finish, I do really think that Gamefreak has a part to play in the downfall of the Pokemon franchise. I'm not retconning any of my opinions in the previous video, I just think that potentially I was a little harsh on the development studio. It's inarguable that almost every part of the Pokemon machine has a part to play in the series' downfall, whether that's Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, or Nintendo themselves. It seems like most people dislike the direction that the franchise is going in, but I have a sneaking suspicion that that is really just the vocal minority in this case. Games keep on flying off of shelves, and at the end of the day the only thing that matters is that the majority enjoy them. But to quote the top comment from the last video, always remember, it's not that greedy to demand better from a multi-billion-dollar company. Thank you, Delilah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much to everyone who left a comment sharing their opinion on the topic. Feel free to share your 2 cents underneath this video. If you're new here, I've uploaded videos on other games like Minecraft and Subnautica, so feel free to check those out in the playlist of all my videos, should be in the top right. There's also a Halo video that should be released soon, so subscribe with notifications if you're interested in that. Thank you so much to the real ones who watched to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.